about reincarnation, I have a couple of stories that really stuck out to me that I really want to talk about. The first one we're going to talk about is Anne Frank and Barbara Carlin. This one was actually pretty interesting. Anne Frank, born on June 12, 1929, was one of the most well-known victims of the Holocaust. She was known for her secret diaries. For 2 years, her and her family lived in a secret attic behind a family-owned business. On August 4th, 1944, the German Secret State Police discovered their hiding place after an anonymous tip. Anne and her family were then sent to a concentration camp where Anne contracted typhoid fever, and she died in March 1945, just 1 month before the camp was liberated by the advancing Allied armies. So Barbara started having memories when she was a young child. The parents really didn't believe her initially, so they had her go to a therapist to kind of push those ideas out because they thought that it was just fantasy. So she played along with it for a while, and she was in school one day, and this is what happened.
I was shocked, actually, because all of a sudden my teacher started to talk about Anne Frank, and here I was knowing that I was Anne Frank, and how can she talk about me? How it didn't really work for me. And then eventually, of course, she told about the diary and about everything. So I realized pretty soon that it was not very smart to go around and say that.
Barbara's family decided to take a family trip to Amsterdam. And they also decided that they would see the Anne Frank house. Now, this is where things get really interesting. They get to Amsterdam. They decide they're going to hop in a cab and head over to the Anne Frank house. But then Barbara's like, no, wait. I know how to get there. We don't need a cab. It's not far. Creepy, right?
I found myself saying to them, we don't need a cab. We're not far away. And I knew exactly where we were. And he said, how can you say that? You've never been. I said, well, I don't know, but let me show you the way. I know it's not far. So they said, okay. So they walked with me, and I took them there, and we walked for maybe 10 minutes, and it was a bit crisscrossing the streets. And when we came, I said, it's around the next corner, and we will be there. And we were, and of course both my parents, they were like, what is happening here?
So it's really interesting, you guys. Barbara and Anne had a lot in common. For instance, Barbara actually had 11 books published by the time she was 16. She was actually a child prodigy in her home country, which is pretty cool. And Anne, she, as we know, really took to writing, and she actually hoped to be a journalist one day. So you guys, I prepared something for you that was actually written by Anne, and it was written in her diary on Wednesday, April 5th of 1944. I finally realized that I must do my homework to keep from being ignorant, to get on in life, to become a journalist, because that's what I want. I know I can write, but it remains to be seen whether I really have the talent. Pretty cool, right? And today, Anne's book is the second famous in the world. And next we have Halle Berry and Dorothy Dandridge. This one is actually one of my favorites. I did a paper about this when I was in 6th grade. So I said, yeah, why not? So just to tell you about Dorothy Dandridge, she was actually a film actress, dancer, and singer. And she was popular back in the 1940s to 50s. And she actually got nominated for Carmen Jones in 1954. Hollywood throughout the 40s and the 60s was a really racist time. Given the era, Hollywood was not ready to have many leading roles for black women, and this showed through Dorothy's career. In 1965, Dorothy Dandridge was found dead in her apartment in West Hollywood, nude and alone, by her manager. She was supposed to be flying to New York for a nightclub engagement, but never made it. Decades later, she would be reincarnated by Halle Berry in the film introducing Dorothy Dandridge. See, this example demonstrates how a soul can come back to complete a goal. See, Dorothy passed away in 1965 in September. Halle Berry was born in August of 1966. And this is where it gets a little strange. They were both born in Cleveland, Ohio. And also, I have a picture. I don't know, tell me what you think, but they look strikingly similar. Halle Berry produced and starred in the movie introducing Dorothy Dandridge, thus appearing as her own past life persona. She spent 5 years working tirelessly to make this happen as if it was her life's purpose. When Halle was making her movie about Dorothy, she became friends with Jerry Branton, one of Dorothy Dandridge's close associates, who was actually in her 70s at the time. During an interview, Jerry noted the great similarities between Dandridge and Berry. She stated, "It's amazing, and she does it, portraying Dorothy Dandridge so well." So here's where things get really creepy. So Halle was given a dress of Dorothy's from her manager and longtime friend. So she takes the dress home, and immediately things start to happen in her home. And it's not only her, the housekeeper also realizes that something's not right. So eventually one night she hears a really strange noise coming from the den, which is where she kept the dress in plastic and protected. And she sees a floating dress, kind of like a baby doll dress, hovering over Dorothy's gown. She runs out, Halle starts crying hysterically, and she calls her friend, and she's just saying to her, "Dottie came to see you?" "Oh, she does that all the time. She doesn't mean any harm." And Dottie is Dorothy. So in the end, I really feel like Dorothy had her second chance at life. She was able to receive awards as Halle Berry. She was able to even get her very own star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. Dorothy's story and her passion is truly inspirational, and she continues to inspire people even after death. Next one we're going to be talking about is Marilyn Monroe and Sherry Leah Laird. And for those of you that don't know who Marilyn Monroe is, which you should, but she was actually a famous model, actress, and singer in the 1950s. She was really famous for her blonde bombshell character, and she was also known as the sex symbol of that time. She was actually the first Playboy feature. So Marilyn Monroe, she was born as Norma Jean Mortensen, born in 1926 in Los Angeles. She's a Gemini, just like me. But yeah, she really had a hard time growing up. She didn't have her father in the picture. Her mom wasn't really financially or mentally able to take care of her. So she gave her to a foster family, which as soon as they were ready to adopt her officially, her mom came and took her back. And then she ended up having another mental breakdown, so she went back to the hospital, and Marilyn was then sent to an orphanage, and she kind of got bounced around from there, and at 16 she decided to get married. At 17, the actress began to work in the aircraft factory patio plane. After a few years, she signed a modeling contract and was advised to change her image to assume an alter ego. Norma had dyed her hair platinum blonde and assumed a new name. The new image brought popularity, and Marilyn became a successful model in a very short time. That's how the billionaire and film director Howard Hughes saw her, and he became interested in having her star as the attractive blonde in movies. Sherry Leah Laird, was actually born 11 months after Marilyn Monroe had actually passed away. So her mother had previously had a miscarriage, and then she had Sherry. So she started having these memories from a young age that were connected to a past life that she had no idea about. She didn't know who Marilyn Monroe was, so eventually they started to become traumatizing for her.
Like diamonds are a girl's best friend. One time I was sitting on my aunt's knee. We were talking about the beauty mark above my lip, and I said I don't like it and I would like to take it off. And my aunt said to me, "Oh, that's just like Marilyn Monroe." And I was like, "Who's that?" And she started singing A Kiss on the Hand, and that's when I said it was like an echo. Whoa, like it was a kiss on that hand with forever, and I was like, "What is that?"
Sherry decided to contact Dr. Finkelstein to get help and a better understanding. After conducting extensive past life regressions, the doctor became convinced that she was the indeed reincarnation of Marilyn Monroe, not only due to her memories, but also due to the presence of similarities in their facial bone structure, hands, handwriting, voice pattern, linguistics, and personality traits. He was also impressed with how much she seemed to know about Marilyn's life when she was under the hypnosis. Here's a clip of one of the videotape sessions.
Can you tell him what's happening?
Everything is wrong. I'm so happy.
Through realizing you were Marilyn, you realized you looked like her too. Was there any...
Jordan that had a conversation with Sherry and also believed that she was the reincarnation of Marilyn. Well, I do hope that you all enjoyed this episode of Celebrity Reincarnation Stories, and I do hope that you subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye!